Let's do it. Let's do it. Hey, what's good? What's
It
going
going today?
That was good, man. It's fire, man. What's up?
Man, hey, it's an honor and a privilege to finally connect with you for the podcast. And I know there was a bunch of little speed bumps along the way, but it's a great analogy. We went over all those speed bumps and we still connected.
We still connected through all those speed bumps. So we're gonna go right into it. What's good? What's going on, everybody? You already know who this is, and it's definitely utmost higher goddess herself. Shark coming back at you once again here at the P.E.G podcast, man. That's positive energy generation, cause we that for life. We're choosing the positivity through all the negatives going on in the world, and life be life, y'all. Two negatives equal to a positive. I've been in my bag, such as artists, public figures, influencers, and people from around the world, near and far, to come and inspire you and show you that you can do it. But y'all know that season 5 has been dedicated to the ones who have been affected by the incarceration system. And you know, I gotta continue to inspire you. So I got this amazing cat. Not only he's a coach, a motivational coach, an inspirational coach, but he has done time in the pen, 11.5 years that he served, and now he's out making a way for himself, for people like you to change. And if he can change, why cannot we, man? He went from the bottom and now he's making a name for himself, recreate his whole life. So without further ado, let me bring on the one and only Mr. Britt Booker in the building.
Hey, that intro was fuego.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, hey, PEG all the way. That's what it's about. Positive energy generation. Like, guys, this is what it's all about. But yeah, just as Shar guy said, I'm really a testament of you are who you are becoming, that your daily habits are really it's what's going to make you or break you. And if you're not intentional with every thought, word, and action, you're going to snowball into somebody you no longer recognize. And that's what happened to me. I started selling weed when I was 15 years old, and I used to have to pay the kids that were older than me to drive me all around town. And one thing led to another. It was like, well, I don't want to just like pay for the weed anymore. So now I got to sell the weed. And it's like, well, I don't want to just sell any amount of weed. I want to sell the most weed. And one thing led to another. And when your feet start to get slippery and you start going down that slope, you start going faster and faster and faster in the wrong direction. And it creates momentum that cannot be stopped. So that's why by the time I was 18, the federal government, they were watching. And I would see them watching. I'd see them taking pictures of me. I'd be taking laser pointers and like pointing them into the cameras. They'd be following me. I'd be running red lights. They would even try to put trackers on my cars, but I always had people watching out. So I would take the tracker off, put it on the semi truck. So it became a giant game to me. And what did that game earn me? 11 and a half year sentence in federal prison. And like I said, I never imagined that at the age of 20, I'd be getting sentenced to 11 and a half years, which represented more than half of my life at that point in time. But that's what happens. It's a snowball effect. You just slowly, the momentum gets worse and worse and worse in the wrong direction, that you wake up one day and you're like, damn, how did I get here?
Yes, and that's the question I want to know. Like you started at a very young age. You say you was 20. That's when the snowball effect just took the wave and went crazy. But before then, there was events that led to this domino effect. So, why did you have such a thrill in what you was doing?
Why did I do all that?
Yeah, like what was the thrill about it? Because it's like a dopamine, you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
Like, what was
yeah.
why was it so fun for you?
Yeah, like I said, at first when you're just smoking weed, it seems so innocent. It seems so small. Like I'll never forget the first time I smoked weed. I thought something was wrong with me because my stomach hurt and I had to eat food, you know?
Yeah,
And that's the thing. When you begin making the wrong decisions, it is actually a lot of fun. Like going to parties, it's fun. Like getting drunk, it's fun, getting high and doing all this stuff. And then eventually, when I first bought like a half pound of weed to start selling, you're having a blast, you're making money. You're like, dude, I could make money and just smoke weed all day. Are you serious?
yeah,
And then it just it's a networking thing. You enjoy feeling like that power, like I'm the man. Everybody comes to me. I'm the plug. And for me, being a white boy from the suburbs who is scrawny, I always felt like I had to go harder. Like I had a name to prove for myself.
So
The entitlement that came with it, the power that came with it, is the reason why you felt like you had to keep doing it. So when you was speaking to me earlier, we went across your bio. You talked about the dark web, how you was too into that with the Bitcoin, and you wanted to be the dark web lord drug lord. What was that like? Like you know what I'm saying? Like, did this come from video games? Like, what was the inspiration behind it?
No. So yeah. So the story behind that is, like I grew up more like always on the computer, And I remember when Bitcoin first came out, I was really hyphy on it. I remember when the first Silk Road came out. And before all of that, I played a lot of video games. I played a lot of Grand Theft Auto. I would listen to a lot of rap music. And really, what I wasn't conscious of or aware of at that point in time, that what we consume mentally, what we consume spiritually, feeds into an image of ourselves. So at one point in time, I always idolized the gangster movies. I would see Scarface and I'd be like, that dude is hard. And like growing up, I idolized all the gangster ass dudes. I idolized all the rappers. And to me, they were really doing it. In my mind, I wasn't thinking that, every single person in these movies, it's fictional. It wasn't really even in my awareness that all of these rappers are capping. They're not even about that life. You know what I mean? This white boy was more about that life than them, So it started with the seed being planted that I wanted to be gangster, and this whole new wave was coming out where the first Silk Road came out. And I remember the first Silk Road came out with Dread Pirate Roberts, and I jumped right on it. And instantly, I just went from being like a kid in the suburbs to a kid in the suburbs who was connected with every major drug manufacturer in the world, as well as credit card scamming and everything that the dark net provides.
You was that guy. Anything that you can get your hands on, you was that guy. But I literally see that, like, hear that story from a lot of guys, especially ones that not particularly the same story, but like you said, the seed was planted. They had falsified, like false prophecy. When I say false prophecy, far as like their idols, they thought they was one way when they found out like I end up living this life, but they live nowhere near this life. So you see a lot of guys who have been incarcerated start off in that same wave. When you was 20 and everything started crashing down on you, what was your mindset then? Was it still it's a game, or were you like, all right?
Yeah. No, 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 no. No. You think you're untouchable at that age. Like I see 20-year-olds now, like teenagers, people in their young 20s, like especially before the age of 25. You can't tell them anything. And I know that psychology shows that the male brain really doesn't mature until the age of 25. So for me, yeah, I would find a tracker on my car. I would see him taking photography, but my self-image of myself was I'm the dark net drug lord. Like
come on now.
I run the show. They're not going to catch me. I'm catching their trackers. I see him taking pictures. It just made me go harder. But it also sadly made me lean more into using Xanax and smoking way more weed. And the Xanax is really what kept the paranoia low. But a side effect of Xanax, just to say it simply, is it makes you just not give a fuck about anything.
Oh shit.
So when you remove that, you start getting into a mindset and you start taking actions that are so misaligned with your core values and who you were when you were raised, that it's insane.
That's wow. So you talked about like, okay, you was smoking weed, you smoked Xanax. Did you do anything other than Xanax or weed, um, or did you
So for me, it was primarily I would smoke weed, I would pop Xanax, and I was very into psychedelics. I used to sell dimethyltryptamine, which is the chemical that It's the chemical in your brain that makes you dream. So what happens is every single night when you dream, your brain releases dimethyltryptamine DMT, and every living organism on Earth has traces of DMT in it. And when you're born and when you die, large amounts of DMT are released from your body. And this is what ultimately, when people die and they say they see the bright lights, what that is the dimethyltryptamine being released from your brain. So you can find certain substances on Earth that have more DMT. And I know this podcast isn't about it, but in short, they have a special root bark in Peru called the Peruvian root bark. And you could take that root bark, you could distill it and get dimethyltryptamine. So I would just do psychedelics, Xanax, and weed.
Wow, no mushrooms, nothing like meth, no cocaine.
Oh yeah, all psychedelics, mushrooms, acid, research chems, whatever. If it's a psychedelic, I've tried it. I mean, the cactuses, peyote. I mean, if it's a psychedelic, I've tried it.
Which not to encourage anyone to do drugs, because I ain't telling you to do it, but from the experiences that you had, you talk about how Xanax calmed the paranoia, but which one did you feel like had the worst effect that you kept feeling like you had to fiend for, you kept coming back to?
Oh, marijuana. Straight up. Like, here's the thing. You ask any stoner, like, people don't think they're addicted to marijuana. And in all of our culture, marijuana now is like held on a pedestal. Like, everyone thinks it's cool, that it's super safe, that you can't even compare it to alcohol. But you ask any stoner to actually like say, hey, can you quit smoking weed for 1 week? They'll say, yeah, but I don't feel like it. Yeah, but I enjoy it. They can't quit smoking weed. I was a crackhead for weed. I could quit any of the drugs. I could not quit smoking weed. Like, it doesn't matter what probation I would go to long lengths to make sure I didn't have to stop smoking weed. And that's the thing. When you quit smoking weed, you lose your appetite. It's such a psychological addiction, but everybody just thinks it's cool out here to smoke weed, and they can't quit. If they tried to quit, they can't. That shit's very addictive.
Dang. And like you said, that's the one thing that most people. Oh, it's a plant, it's a drug, but like literally, if you go into withdrawal off of anything, off being on it for a long period of time, it's a drug. It's a drug. Um,
Exactly. And like in my coaching business, a lot of guys that come in, they were smoking weed, and I don't allow anybody to smoke weed who I work with. And I'm telling you, it is a struggle for them. It is not easy. They can give up the alcohol real quick. They can give up the other stuff if they fight it out. But the weed, it's just so accessible now. Everybody like condones it. A lot of people have friends who just think it's cool to be like, hey, let's go smoke. Let's go smoke. Man, if there's one thing that's going to destroy your potential, it's the weed. And I should know, because when I was in prison, I still smoked weed more than probably 95 to 99% of people who smoke weed out here in the real world. I smoked more than you when I was in prison. And that shit was expensive. Well, look, I can't like self snitch on myself.
well, yeah, don't criminate yourself.
I would have like 50 to 100 1-gram wax pods smuggled in, and then I would keep different batteries. So I'd smoke wax all day, every day, and then I'd also get like 1/4 pounds of nugs. I would bury a majority of it, but I would keep like 1/8 on me, and I would roll blunts. But yeah, so I mean, there reached a point where it got so out of control, even in prison, because I always had to keep a glove on me because people were always telling on me, but I never failed a UA because I always stayed one step ahead of the people that were telling on me. But what I'm saying is, I had to reach a point in prison where I still couldn't stop smoking weed. And I mean, come on, it's already expensive enough to get it in there, especially with how much I was smoking and all the risk. But that's just how difficult it could be.
Yeah, that's crazy. So what would you say to people, not just the ones that have been where you are, that's been incarcerated, that had to go through serving time, but even the ones that are out the system that smoke weed? What advice do you give when students come in and they say, hey, I want to work with you, but you said you can't smoke weed? What advice do you give so others can probably take that step too?
Yeah, so it's actually a real simple process. So usually once I make that statement, I just I make them come to that realization by asking them questions. You always want other people to come up with the realization themselves instead of you directly telling them. So, like, first, we could start off by saying, can you sincerely give me the pros and cons to marijuana? And there's always going to be more cons. Like, at the root of it, marijuana, you are escaping something, if you like it or not. When you are truly sober and you truly have put in the work in your self-development process and you really have that confidence that is exudes from you, you have so much fun. You vibrate so high with your vibrational energy that you wouldn't even want to smoke weed because this feeling cannot be reproduced. So after we go over that and we go over the pros and cons, I just explain to them this. I say, like, when your voice, your inner voice, you're about to do something, and then after you do it, you feel guilty. That's your conscious speaking to you. You're either in cognitive resonance, which means everything you're doing is congruent and in alignment with what your conscious is telling you, or you're in resonance, which means, dissonance, which means that what you're doing, you shouldn't be doing. And most people that smoke weed, when they get high, there is that voice inside of them that is telling them not to do it. But the more you get high, the more you smoke weed, the weaker that voice gets. And that's the dangerous part of weed, is that by losing that connection to your conscious, you can't live a conscious, congruent lifestyle. And ultimately, you cannot live up to your full potential. You cannot have true joy and fulfillment. And look, this is coming from someone who on my arm, I have 420 tattooed right here. I have a computer hacker with weed leaves coming out behind him. I mean, guys, I'm a major stoner, like the biggest stoner. All I wore was Bob Marley gear in high school. So for me to come to this realization, you got to understand that I've had a lot of deep reflection on the pros and the cons.
I like that because, like you said, it's an escape that you run from, and you can admit, I ain't the only one. You're not the only one. But like you said, you was able to have a comment. And what do you think that you was running from that you kept smoking, you kept smoking, but when you was in jail and you made a decision, you know what? I want to do things better and bigger in my life. I need to stop smoking. Like, how was that experience for you? Like, when did you make that decision?
Yeah. So a lot of it is self-talk. Like when I was in prison, don't get me wrong, when I was smoking weed, I was still writing books. I was sitting on my rack and just reading self-help books, investing books all day, every day. I would go out to work outside, go hit the weight pile or do some burpees, and I'd work out for 2 hours straight because the weed gave me such intense focus. But here's the thing, all of that was my self-talk telling me this. So what happened was I had to sit back and realize and question, what is the narrative that I have bought into? Because that narrative is not always my own. That narrative is shit that I have consumed on social media prior to me coming to prison. That narrative is from friends and family and peers and teachers that have constantly fed me information.
Right.
So I had to reach a point where I began to question everything. And that's really why I decided to quit smoking weed, because I'm like, oh my God, I want to go in this deep reflection, but something is holding me back. And once I really quit and I realized that you and we are in charge of the state we want to be in at all times. So like, I want to ask you a question. Have you ever listened to a song and that song made you sad?
Yeah.
Got you like hypey in the car?
That got me tube turned.
That's the thing. When you achieve self-mastery, when you're sober and weed is not destroying that connection that you have to your conscious, you can do certain patterns that can reproduce any state. So if I'm having trouble focusing, because all of our thoughts are attached in a string. So like with that song, there was an event, the stimuli, it's your response, and then how you feel.
Right.
So you can't do that when you smoke weed. So if you want the feeling you get from smoking weed, if you want to feel motivated, if you want to feel any state that you want, sad, if I wanted to cry right now, I could recreate that. So really, that's the root of what I was trying to say, is that when you let all the vices go and you really dive into self-mastery, you would be amazed at how incredible you could feel every day.
I mean, you're the perfect example because you're super hyped, super energetic. I mean, you got the positive energy rolling off of you. But you have went through some tough times. I mean, 11 years, 11.5 years in prison is no joke. And you also went from a lot of shedding and doing a lot of shadow working. What would you say was the hardest part about being in prison for you, even though you was going through this growth of development?
So, and just to provide some context for the listeners, I did Fed time. So, Fed time means you're doing time all across the country. I've been in prisons in 8 states, 10 different correctional institutions, some holdovers, some long term for years, right? I've been on Con Air, shipped all across the country. And here's the thing, even during COVID, we were locked in a cell. We had no air conditioning, no running water. My coworker, people were dying. But none of that, like the time I've done in solitary, none of it was as hard to swallow as knowing that every single day I didn't have the freedom of choice to chase my dreams. I didn't have the ability to unlock my full potential and like get after it. So you have all these dreams, all these aspirations in your mind. You want to create, you want to build, you want to just experience life, and you can't do it. All you have is the 4 white walls.
That's crazy. And you could go crazy, you could go mad insane, but I love how you took a journey. You took this crazy journey because you have a lot of people that go in and come back out the same, or they do the offense, they become reoffenders, because they have nowhere to go. So it's easier to keep doing the same patterns.
You know what? For me, I don't necessarily believe in all that. And the reason why is this: I've been around enough guys to say this is that if someone really wants it, there are systems in place to allow you to win, because the only thing they like don't need to do is get high, get drunk, or break a law. If you don't do those 3 things, they'll never go back. But here's the problem, and I always will keep it 100. I was in prison with so many guys. They would get on the phone and they're telling their family, I'm going to change. I'm doing this program. I'm doing this. And they're fucking liars. All they would do is gamble, get high, watch TV for 17, 18 hours a day, ride the rack, eat their little Debbies, and just deteriorate. So what happens is when you lean into the pleasure because you don't want to face the pain, you don't want to face your problems for years on end, those become so deeply ingrained that you're going to fail when you get out. You're going to break. So that is why recidivism is so high. It's because people really don't want to put in the work in prison, because I've been at prisons where there's been 0 programs, and I've been at prisons where they had every program, and people had the same mentality at each institution. That a majority of guys, they just wanted to do what was easiest. I always chose to do what was hard. That's why I woke up so early. That's why I'd work out 2 to 3 times a day. That's why I would read all day, every day, because I knew I did not want to be like the guys around me. I saw it and I said, this is a joke. There's no way I'm coming back here.
So basically you're saying, well, you're not basically saying, you're saying the reason why people become reoffenders is that they're not doing the things that it takes to be accountable for themselves.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. There is a lot of levels to this, and I don't want to throw a blanket statement out there, because I do understand that, like the feds, sometimes there's a little bit of a setup there, because there'll be federal halfway houses that will be like in the hood, right? And where the federal halfway house is, if somebody is on a certain type of gang time, the rival gang, that halfway house is in their rival gang's neighborhood, and people have died over that, So some people are scared to go to the halfway house because they know if they go to that halfway house, they are in the ops neighborhood and it can get them hurt. But it's like there is a lot of levels to it, but at the same time, they could drop out of the gang. They can. I understand it's a lifestyle and everything. Man, that's where it gets challenging, because I don't want to step into their shoes and project what they should or shouldn't do. But I'm saying if they really wanted it, they would disavow all of that shit. That's what I had to do. I had to disavow my entire way of living and say, nah, this is how I live now.
Okay. Well, that's fine, because like you said, you're the prime example, because you've been around a lot of people, especially far from one prison to the next, doing federal time. You're seeing a lot of characters. You're seeing a lot of demeanors. You also study psychology, right? Right. So you also study the development of how people think, how people move, how people mannerism, their behaviors. So you was doing more than just in that moment being in prison. You was actually taking an experience from the things that you were studying to be able to master this moment. You know.
Oh, exactly. And it's actually become so deeply ingrained that I try to check myself sometimes because I'll be with family and they're always like, why are you always on a swivel? Why are you always looking around? And it's just the same thing. When you're in prison, you're always scanning the environment for threats. And really studying that human nature was important for me because it allowed me to really go through prison without any major altercations. Because, you know, prison is like not bad for the individual who just avoids the drugs, is respectful to everybody, minds their own business, doesn't start drama, and doesn't run up a debt. Like if people just do that, they just act like solid, dude, they're never gonna have a problem. They could just focus on bettering their life and they'll be good. But it's very difficult for a lot of people.
Let's actually move to the reason why you decided to do this. You decided to do it because of the experience that you took. But you wrote 10 books. Am I correct? 10 books while you was doing this process, and you was in Toastmasters. That's the program that you started in.
Yeah. So there was a lot of cool things I had the opportunity to participate in and do while I was in prison. I helped start a reentry committee where, I would teach, not only would I would actually create the courses, but I would teach and facilitate them. Man, massive courses. I even created a program where I'd go out into the community and I would talk to the at-risk youth. And I never did it in a scared straight fashion because here's the thing, kids are really smart, like way smarter than people give them credit for. And that whole scared straight movement, like, come on, kids think that's a joke. But when you level with a kid, talk to them like an adult, share your experiences, get emotional, show empathy, like that hits way deeper than anything else you could do. But yeah, I did Toastmasters. I wrote a lot of books. And, my whole thing was I wanted to be defined by how I responded to prison rather than being sent to prison. And that's why, like, just like today, I'm out in public. I vibrate very high. So people are always saying to me, like, they'll see my GPS ankle monitor and they'll be like, what's that? And then I tell them my story, like, but you look normal. And then my first thought is like, I'm like, what does that mean? Like, you have an archetype or a stereotype of what a convict looks like? I don't know. But I say the reason is just because I refused to assimilate.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be a convict, I wanted to come out and do better.
And I like when I see people that's such as yourself and people that came from, like, whether they was ex-con or whether they used to struggle with drugs. I like to see out here making a difference from not just yourself but other people. Like you said, it's like, if I could do it, anybody can do it. And the fact that you're not only still thinking about yourself and you out is beyond. You know what I'm saying? You're doing a lot of things that a lot of ex-convicts don't do. So what if there's a convict right now, there's an ex-convict that just got out and they're trying to figure out their next step? What advice would you give them to take that next step?
Oh man, the next step, it's really simple. Your daily habits. If all you focus on is becoming the best version of yourself, like if it's a guy just becoming the best man, the man you most admired, you are going to be successful. Like that's all you need. Early, like your habits, waking up early, going to the gym and getting a pump, staying sober and investing in yourself every single day. Like people always want to know, like, how am I going to do it? Why is this happening to me? What am I going to do? Those questions are so unimportant. The only question that matters is who. Who is the person that got you into that situation? Who must you become to get out of it? And if you do that, you're going to be successful. Everything will work itself out. That's how the universe operates. It's the law of attraction. Like you are going to attract people and opportunities to you. I've experienced it since I've been out. I've elevated so fast in a period of 5 months of stepping out of the wall because of this.
Hey, I didn't even realize it was just 5 months ago.
Yeah, I just got out. I mean, I showed you. I still have this GPS. Yeah. I mean, technically on the website, my out date's not even till October.
Wow.
So everything I do right now is extra credit. So that's just my mindset. But people go in there, they want to have it all figured out. You're never going to have the perfect plan. You're never going to have it all figured out. The only thing that matters is action. And perfect action is better than perfect action, because perfect action is just procrastination. So you just take action, fail. Who cares? You just keep trying.
Keep trying. I like that. For people that want to like know more about the crypto, because I gotta ask. I'm very into the market, stocks, and learning and studying the statistics of the market. How did you? Because I know you said that you was able to accumulate a lot of Bitcoin at that time. How did this happen? Because I know Bitcoin was going stupid dumb, crazy. Did you study it, or you just like bought up a lot of it because?
No, for me, like, I had tens of thousands of Bitcoin. My situation with Bitcoin is different because I first started buying Bitcoin at like 15 cents, and I was buying it to facilitate. The first time I bought it, I was buying fake IDs on the dark net. So me and my friends could go to bars and stuff, and I think each fake ID was like $150. So, it was probably three. So each fake ID was probably around like 450, 470 Bitcoin. So there's levels to it. But here's the thing. A lot of people still ask me for like crypto advice, investing advice. And really, I just laugh because I'm like, bro, why are you worried about investing when you should only be focusing on active income? Find any way to elevate your income. Forget the investing. Like, you can invest once you're up, but you got to do whatever it takes to improve your skills, improve like who's in your network, pay for mentorship, buy a coach. Like, you have to invest in yourself to find ways to elevate your active income. If you can do that, everything is going to work out. But everyone's trying to get like the get rich quick schemes. And the people that came up on Bitcoin, like I would have if I never went to prison, like, dude, that's gone. Like, all those other plays are the long game. What can you do right now to just start making more money?
It's a lot. It's a lot you can do right now. So I love it. You got to start now. You got to get going. You got to take that action. Like you said, motion just period is good motion. Perfect motion. Like I like what you said is procrastination, and you can't be perfect. No one's perfect. Before we go, I really want to ask you one thing. You see you on social media. You see you online really paving the way, being a motivational coach, speaking. If somebody wanted to, like, hey, I want that guy. He got so much energy. He's going to put me on the right path, and he's the right person for me. If they wanted to join your program, where could they find you? And, what would be the one message you give them in 15 seconds?
Yeah, I mean, just like I said earlier, there's no perfect time to change your life. You just have to do it now. You have to say, it's like Cortez when they wanted to take over Mexico and they were from Spain. They said, we're going to run all the ships into the ground. We're going to burn them down because we are either going to conquer Mexico or die. If you don't have that type of mindset when it comes to changing your life, you are not going to do it because you are just going to procrastinate forever. You can connect with me on Instagram. It's at ITS Brett Booker, BRETT BOOKER. You hit me up. I respond to every single DM. I'm in my DMs all day, every day. We will change your life. You just have to really figure out if you want it or not.
I love it. I love it, especially seeing a guy like you with all this energy, and you got books out. Y'all make sure y'all go check out his book. It's available on Amazon. Y'all go check it out. I'm gonna buy that book. I just wanted you to listen. I saw it. Yeah, Crypto Pursuit. I was like, okay, girls, truth, come with it. So I'm gonna go check it out. I read up on it, and it definitely interests me. So make sure y'all go check out his book. It's really, really dope. And man, just continue to create. You got education, you got degrees, and all from a guy that is on house arrest. Like you know what I'm saying? Like,
hey, don't let a guy on house arrest who literally has to call for permission to go to the mailbox. Everywhere I go, I have to take a selfie. Literally, I have to take a selfie everywhere I go. Everything's on an itinerary. I have to charge this thing all the time. If you're going to allow me to beat you when I'm just 5 months out of prison and I'm killing it.
You killing it.
I've been killing it fast. Come on, guys. Come on, step your game up. It all starts. This is the last thing I wanted to add, guys, is that, Nikola Tesla said, if you want to understand the universe, you have to understand energy and vibration. A great investment you can begin to start this whole process is look up the vibrational frequency chart. At the top of the chart, you have love and joy. At the bottom, you have anger, envy, greed, guilt. Where you are vibrating on this chart will depend and deliver every single outcome in your life. I am high frequency because I have invested in my daily habits to continually elevate to a high frequency. And that is why opportunities and people come to me. If you are not doing that, you need to change.
Hey, and that's what vibed me to you. Not gonna lie, when I saw it, I was like, perfect. He got the energy, he has the story, and he has the light to do it. So keep sharing your story, keep sharing your light. Look, y'all, nobody told y'all today, tomorrow, yesterday that they love you. Know that Sharp from the P.E.G podcast love you. My boy Britt Booker loves you. And man, go check out his book. Like I said, if nobody can inspire you, and if nobody has inspired you so far, this guy is the person that can inspire you. So go check him out. And bro, thank you for getting on with me and sharing your story. It really means so much to me. It really means so much to the family. And we love you, man. Keep doing your thing.
Char, I love you. All right. I love the energy. P.E.G for life. Okay, guys?
P.E.G for life. Let's get it and let's go.